The earth is our cradle. In her arms we are born, and in her arms we die. Songs of the earth are love songs. We invite you to invoke your own words of praise and clasp your hands in your own manner of giving thanks. We will sing. In the darkness of pre-dawn, something has awakened us, our inner clock, the hoot of an owl. The earth is on the edge of day. When I was a child growing up in South America and the Middle East, my geologist father, who is in the second row this evening, told the story of the land around us. I came to know the dynamic earth that extended beneath us, layer upon layer, all the way down to its fiery core. Above us, from the surface of the earth up to the stars, was another expanse, inhabited by astronauts and glittering with stars. The earth we saw from the windows of cars, airplanes, boats, and the backs of camels and elephants was only what it looked like at the moment we traveled through, not how it had been, nor how it would be later. The earth's surface was caught in an endless cycle of transformation. Layers were lifted or squeezed up to the surface slowly over millions of years or overnight, bringing materials into view that had traveled from far below. Lying on the earth at night, we watched stars fall, and with telescopes, we followed the arc of cosmonauts squeezed into tiny spaceships as they traveled across the sky. I didn't fall in love with the earth until decades later, and when I fell very hard. It happened almost 20 years ago in a mountain village in Japan. I first saw that house in my dreams, its heavy hand-hewn beams holding up delicate walls made of woven bamboo and pressed earth. The house was waiting on the edge of destruction, and as we held out our hands, it caught us in its arms. I fell in love as I opened the heavy doors and stepped into the entryway, dust particles dancing in the light from a high window. I think I heard ruach, the Hebrew word for the breath of the universe, and that called me to stay. Until that moment, I had called many different places in the world home, but I had not felt home like that before. The old house was a sounding board, and my ear against it, I tuned my body to the heartbeat of the earth. I heard the sound again 10 years ago, when we watched the sunrise over Spider Rock at Canyon de Chelly, light dancing on the place where the rainbow weaver is said to live. I began to dream of crossing the chasm on her woven bridge. Long, long ago, before dawn, the rainbow weaver looks out from Spider Rock and considers the chasm that separates her from everyone else. "This is the day," she whispers, "for there is only this day." She sits at her loom and weaves a rainbow, her shuttle flying through the spectrum. Her heart takes stock, and her intention grows to encompass all of us who wish to approach her holy place. With the first beam of light, she releases her masterpiece, hurling it like a lasso across the canyon towards the place where we are waiting. The edge is caught in the stones before our feet, and upward it rises, the weaving stretching into an arc of colors we have never seen together, only separately. The blue of the morning, the red of the rock, the yellow of the noon sun, the violet of the night sky. She walked out to the rim of the rock to see what she could see. Darkness stretched speed of light, she raced with the sun, shuttle flashing in the night. The rainbow bridge was done. Who will take the first step towards me? I sing to you with the sun, rising up from darkness to warm the earth on the edge of day. Who will take the first step towards me? I sing to you with the sun, rising up from darkness to warm the earth on the edge of day. To geologists, the Southwest is a holy place. In the middle of a presentation on the Grand Canyon, a University of Arizona geology professor raised his hand and slowly, with all his force, pressed it down until he knelt before us, his knees on the museum's parquet floor as if in prayer. In the descent to the Colorado River, we travel past and through formation after formation of rocks almost too holy to touch. In deep reverence, scientists called them after deities of the Hindus, Zoroastrians, Greeks, and Romans. In their names is the swirling force of creation and a great gathering for a dance of gods. The bony footprints of pilgrims crisscross this earth. If they left evidence like snails, a special light could track their movement from one side of this earth to the other and up mountains, always up mountains. Hindu pilgrims climb ever upward to the source of the Ganges to reach into the clear water and cleanse their spirits with handful after handful of holiness. One day, when I returned from a long journey, a wind caught the cherry blossoms of the trees across the pond from our house and pulled them up into a blossom cloud. As we step ahead from this place where our hearts have brought us, we wonder, will the wind catch us? Will angels' arms bear us up?
Everything I've learned, every choice I've made, brought me to this holy mountain. If I step ahead,
home to our land in Arizona, crossed the Royal Road, the Via Real, the Anza Trail, a section of road that took monks, soldiers, and people hungry for gold from their homelands in Spain in search of the promised land. A few hours on horseback to the south, the trail runs through an international border before it moves into a long, open desert. If you dig into any part of this earth to find its story, you will find blood. 300 years ago, can you see the recruiting officers plying the country towns of Spain, telling stories of what awaited across the sea? In the lamplight of balmy summer evenings, young men were wooed by stories of a beautiful country inhabited by unicorns and shining with streets paved in gold. The pilgrims who ventured up and down the Royal Highway that threads through lands that are now New Mexico, Arizona, and California were Spanish, Basque, Gallego, German, Catalan, Italian, and Swiss. Gray-robed Franciscans and uniformed soldiers followed black-robed Jesuits when this land was the northernmost outpost of the Spanish Empire. As the Paiutes and Shoshone walked along the paths of many of our ancestors, above these soldiers, out of sight, around them and with them, walked the Tohono O'odham, the Yaqui, and the Apache, and many others. Their paths crossed often in trading, in bloodshed, and I want to believe in song. Can you hear the echoes of those trails? Travelers have ventured far from home. Where is the promise? Looking back, their footsteps disappear into the sand.
Ever farther from the homes we left behind us, across the sea.
of the earth, we find suffering. In the Sonoran Desert borderlands shared by Arizona and Mexico, migrants cross in the darkness. Many die without water. In our cities, the homeless carve sleeping places under bridges and park benches. Into that darkness, let us pray for their safety and for a way to make a difference. Whether the voice that calls us to reach out our hands comes from the heavens or from deep within our own minds, let us tune our ears to that voice that urges us to open our hands and hearts.
Can I hear
On a morning in March, when the earth releases that indefinable smell of spring, daffodils push with all their strength towards the surface where earth meets sky. In that beauty, can you hear the voice of Demeter, a mother remembering her daughter Persephone and praying that she has begun her long journey upward? In her remembering, the frozen earth relaxes and buds begin to grow on trees.
Sleep.
of this earth is as large as the Grand Canyon and as small as the bee diving for the innermost parts of the flower. Emily Dickinson never saw summer unfolding on the land that stretched out of her sight far to the west. She sat in her garden in Amherst, Massachusetts. Yet, as she sat there, the words she penned looking into the middle of that garden, perhaps in the sound of a bee, she caught the essential of a summer's day on the prairie she had never seen. To make a prairie, it takes a clover and one bee, one clover and a bee, and reverie. The reverie alone will do if bees are few. They say that children of ranchers took their sweethearts up the sides of mountains to watch the show. Lightning slicing the sky sideways, the landscape lit up like a stage. Better than a drive-in movie, the electricity crackling around them, the washes filling up in seconds. Did those young people hope to be stranded for an evening as children living in the icy Northlands hope for the snow to be too deep for their school bus? Desert monsoons shake us out of the ordinary. People tell stories of the reckless who thought their pickup truck could make it across the wash. We never saw him again, they say, and he had a pretty big rig. No trace. And they shake their heads but can't help but smile at people who don't know the strength of nature. In a wrestling match with the desert, the human loses every time. As soon as the storm begins, it is gone, leaving traces in the cloudy crevices of mountains. The next day, flowers never seen before cover the paths into the wild. Roads become slippery with caterpillars. Desert rivers begin to run, too shallow for boating, but deep enough to cool one's feet.
And the reed seems strong and flings the water downward, rushing into caves and bursting from the hills. Gullies try for
Autumn began with the turning of maples, as if the gods had flicked paintbrushes full of crimson towards the mountains. Tart persimmons waited under cover of dark bottle green leaves until September winds tore them away and left the orange globes to ripen in the sun. Farmers watched their fields and waited for that window of sunshine before the first typhoon. Bears, hungry for persimmons, descended in the darkness to climb along the fragile branches for the ripest, sweetest fruit. The farmers heard them fall out of the trees and stayed inside. Poets waited for words to describe the fullness of the harvest moon. Lovers waited for the darkness. Scarecrows stood in the dark and sang.
From the north.
In the northern lands of Europe, winter was a time of darkness. As the days became shorter and darker, there came a day when everyone began to wonder if the sun would return. Would it ever rise again? People went out into the woods on that dark, dark day and waited for the sun. Wait, there's one more song. But thank you. That's very encouraging. Often the problems around us seem insurmountable. The suffering is too great. Bombs go off at a marathon in a far city, and as we mourn, we know that our own marathon may be in danger. During these times of uncertainty, the words of prophets weave a web of vision that is another layer of this earth. They reveal what is beyond our vision. When John Muir looked at the wilderness, he saw what pioneers who wanted to graze sheep did not. He fell in love with places that are now our refuge. His love inspired writings that convinced the U.S. government to protect Yosemite, Sequoia, Grand Canyon, and Mount Rainier. Without his love, those places as we know them would have disappeared. He wrote, "When we contemplate the whole globe as one great dewdrop, striped and dotted with continents and islands, flying through space with other stars, all singing and shining together as one, the whole universe appears as an infinite storm of beauty. For the love of our earth and for our hope in the survival of that infinite storm of beauty, we sing Alleluia."